The Northtown News Magazine is brought to you in part by eVoter. eVoter is proud to be a sponsor of the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
For the identity of the real Marty Levinson, please stay tuned to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet Hope, Chicago. 224.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with Sonny Hirsch, our cameraman, and the greatest host around, Sonny Myers.
That's a keeper. I'm keeping that.
Shalom and welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. Glad you could be with us today. We are here in the studios of the Northtown News Magazine with host extraordinaire of the Northtown News Magazine, Avi Myers. Avi, welcome to the show and welcome to your studio.
First of all, thank you so much, and it's such a pleasure to appear on your show and on this. I love your new set, I got to tell you.
It's a pleasure to be on your show. You know, it's always nice when we're able to get together. You and I have a lot in common. It's not just our kippah. It's the West Rogers Park focused show that we both host for each other, and also a lot of our guests kind of overlap a lot of times too, which is a nice thing because we share different information from the same guests.
They definitely do, and one of the things too is we originally met, I remember the first time I met you, and it actually through a mutual friend, Shelley Wogel.
Shelley is doing very well.
And I found out he just became a Zaidi.
He did, in Israel.
So yeah, congratulations, Shelley and Miss Shelley, as your email would indicate. Oh, and by the way, we have to thank Sonny Hirsch, who's our entire technical crew.
Sonny is the entire technical crew, and he's great. Thanks, Sonny, as always. So, Avi, I wanted to be with you and have you on the show with me because I think that you have this unique insight into things that other people don't, because here we are post February elections in 2010, and the primaries are over, and so much news post-primary has taken place, and you've met just about everybody. I've met a few of them, but you've met just about everybody who is running. You have that unique opportunity. Although I had a great program on not only my TV show, but in my congregation, where all four of the candidates for president of the Cook County Board, which is probably the hottest race out there
right.
In our area, took place. And I had all four of them on the show. And, of course, Tony Prepwinkle won that election. And it was interesting. Have you met all four of those people who were running?
Oh, yeah, I had all four of them on the show, as a matter of fact.
You had all four of them on the show.
Yeah.
Now, I know, of course, that you are good friends with Terry. And
yeah, Terry's a great guy.
And Terry is going to continue on with the water reclamation district, right?
Terry still has 3 years in his term for water reclamation. I don't know what he's going to do from there. I mean, basically, he put everything he had into that race, and it's really a shame that the public didn't appreciate what a truly outstanding person he is. But then again, that's not unusual in politics, and unfortunately, a lot of people didn't vote. Listen, only 25% of the people voted. Right,
that's true. You know, Terry O'Brien, not only do I know him well, and you were the one who introduced me to him the first time, he did some great promos for me for my show. He asked me if I wanted to give him a scissors for one of the promos. I mean, it was fun. And, you know, he spoke very well, and he was a good candidate. Fortunately, in this case, four of those people could have been good candidates in their own way, one way or another, and only one person can win. And Tony Prepwinkle has been a fantastic alderman for Hyde Park in the area. And, you know, I wish her all the best. She also, of course, was on the show at the time. And Dorothy Brown. Dorothy Brown was so interesting. She has quite a personality. Now, you had her on the show, huh?
A number of times, and she's very charming, yeah.
Tell me about Dorothy. Tell me about your impressions about her. Now, she's going to continue on as the clerk of the circuit court.
Oh, yeah, she still has, 3 years left on her term?
She does also. What do you think? What do you think brought Dorothy to being a proper candidate for the Cook County presidential position? You know, why Dorothy do you think could have been or shouldn't have been that person?
Well, first of all, she was a logical successor within the black community to John Stroger. First of all, Todd, who's a very nice kid, but basically he's kind of a kid. And whose beep is that? Okay, anyway, Todd Stroger really proved that he can't manage the county board at all. So the thing is that Dorothy Brown even joined the 8th Ward organization, which was John Stroger's organization, lived in that area, and was looking to take over at some point the county board. Now, the interesting thing is that Dorothy Brown was considered originally a real blue ribbon candidate by the Tribune and the Sun-Times. And she came out of nowhere. It's interesting how people paint somebody as the old face once they're in office. But she came in, she's got an MBA, she's got a law degree, she's got an accounting degree.
She let us know that.
And she
has a lot of degrees, a lot of education.
And she's also a computer expert. And the fact is she's been managing a department with 2,200 people.
The largest court system in the United States.
Right. And by the way, the interesting thing is if you look at Preckwinkle, I mean, she might be a very nice... See, this is an example of somebody she's a very nice person. She's a very conscientious person. I have good things to say about her as a person. I think I have good things to say about her as an alderman. But she's never managed a staff of more than 5 or 6 people. And it's a lot different managing a county with thousands and thousands of employees, not to mention divisions within that. I mean, she's basically in charge, too, of the sheriff and the state's attorney and all the rest of it. She's never been into any kind of large management situation. But Dorothy Brown, number one, has the credentials. The reason, once you get a track record, you're not going to live a perfect life. They're always going to pick something out about you. And they did. You know, they didn't have to find too much. It's like they all got to raise money. So
Blue jeans was...
Yeah. Now, by the way, I'm not going to tell you that I thought it was a good idea. I wear jeans all the time, but they're black jeans.
But you don't make a donation to...
No, I don't make a donation. So you know what? Okay, it wasn't the best idea she had, but the fact of the matter is...
They really focused on it.
You know what? When you're in that position, she's going to make hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions. And they're going to Monday morning quarterback each one of them because actually Preckwinkle, for whatever reason, seemed to be a darling of the press. And
she was endorsed by the Sun-Times and the Tribune.
Yeah, the Tribune in particular I find very interesting. The Tribune, I really wonder what their motives are. Because the Tribune has always been a staunch Republican paper. They completely floored me when they supported Barack Obama. I also haven't liked, ever since they ran that anti-Semitic cartoon of Ariel Sharon with that patch, I've been very suspicious of the whole...
That was pre-Zell.
Right, but we're not just... But see, the thing is, it might be pre-Zell, but that was the same editorial department, basically.
Yes, it is.
That was the same guy, Bruce Stoll, was running things then, and I still remember his apology. You know what? I even called him on it in person right before Thanksgiving last year. And he says, I hope you still subscribe. And I said, no, I don't.
You know, one thing interesting is that Terry O'Brien brought up in that whole scenario was that he manages a lot of money and a lot of people, and he has done one heck of a job of cutting budget cuts and not necessarily causing a lot of people to lose their jobs in the meantime.
He has, as a matter of fact, nobody's been fired from there, despite all the things going on. He is an ideal money manager. You know, he's brought his experience from the private sector as well as what he does publicly. And, you know, Scott Sisak, and you know what? Hey, Scott, I'm giving you another shout out, okay? We're Facebook friends. Not that I've met half my Facebook friends. But, you know, it's like Scott, the campaign manager for Tony Preckwinkle, politics is a blood sport. Eleanor Clift of Newsweek and the McLaughlin Group said it. It's such a proper phrase. Politics is a blood sport. And I got to tell you, Preckwinkle's campaign was a master of the blood sport. It really was. She was trying to paint everybody else as a crook. She was feeding, I mean, that's all that negative stuff about other candidates. It was basically being fed by her campaign. I mean, she was busy slandering. I mean, Scott Sisak too. Hey, Scott, you know, like, you get credit. You did a great job. You're a terrific campaign manager, and I'd love to have you on the show, and I'm going to be really nice to you too, because it's a question of information. I'm not looking to knock the guy. Effective politics is effective politics. It's a blood sport. She slandered everybody upside down while trying to look like a white knight the whole time.
I got to tell you something funny. A Terry and Tony story.
Yeah.
and you can watch this on, the episode is still available at tvrabbi.com. When the comments between each other were going on, Terry got up and Tony got up. And Tony said, she said, if I'm elected, I'm going to cut my salary, I think she said by 10% or something like that, the first thing that I go into office. So Terry gets up and gives his piece, and he says, and I'm very, very proud of the Alderman Preckwinkle for announcing that she's going to cut her salary since she voted to raise her salary 4 times as an alderman. So I was just laughing so hard.
Well, she never met a tax she didn't vote for. That's the truth. I mean, I want to tell you, once again, she's a really nice person. She's very conscientious, and she means well. It doesn't mean it translates.
And I'm sure she'll do a good job, but there'll be a lot of learning in the process.
Well, I hope she does a good job, and I know she wants to do a good job.
And you know, the truth is, you know, Todd Stroger, he has some political background, but he came into his father becoming critically ill and dying, and kind of it all got thrown at him. It took him a long time to learn, and he made right decisions and wrong decisions, and some of them cost him the election. But at the same time, the county is still working. So he did something right along the way to allow the county to continue to work. So it's a very hard position, and it's hard to make those decisions.
Yeah, he raised our tax to the highest tax in
It's hard to make those decisions. That's the only way that he could think of keeping it running. Others have other opinions, obviously, and now part of that tax has been repealed, and the rest of it, I understand, is going to be repealed according to the alderman.
Preckwinkle's going to take, you know what, we'll see what really happens. If you're going to repeal it, you repeal it. Part of the thing, Todd Stroger's a very, very nice person who means to please. It doesn't mean he's up for the job. Just because you're there and you're making the decisions doesn't mean you can have the best intentions in the world. You really can. And you can make all. And
I believe he was sincere. I do. After meeting with him,
he is sincere.
I had a show that I did just with him last year. It was just him alone, and we had some nice talks. And I believe he was very sincere. And as
he's a very nice guy.
Others would say he was just misguided.
Well, I'm not. You know what? I don't think he was misguided necessarily.
I'm not sure he was. I'm saying that's what others would say. Because he seemed very sincere in his love for the position.
I think he meant well. I just think he was out of his league, frankly.
He's an interesting guy. So these are these 4 candidates, and here we go. Then I was at another meeting.
Okay.
Another meeting, which I also, by the way, had my TV show taped there, and I had some great people on my show, and kind of the MC of the show was Larry Suffredin.
Oh, Larry's a great guy.
Represented the county. And after the show, which Larry was there, and State Senator Ira Silverstein, Alderman Bernard Stone of the 50th Ward, and
I've heard of most of these guys.
Bridget Gaynor,
I like
also
Bridget Gaynor.
County. She was on the show, and she also kind of co-anchored with Larry when we met and talked. And also Lou Lang, U.S. Representative, and
State Representative.
State Representative, and U.S. Representative Jan Schakowsky from the House of Representatives was also there. So we had a lot of people there, and it was very interesting. It was meet your candidates in the community, and this was a West Rogers Park meeting at the Booth
Actually,
School.
it wasn't a meet your candidate; it was a meet your elected official
Your elected
meeting,
official,
which
your
actually was
elected official,
right. And this was the West Rogers Park Community Organization.
Right, correct.
And I wasn't going to bring it up at all in talking, but as long as you brought it up. You know what? If it's a meet your candidate night, it was 8 days before the election.
Yeah, it was
a political.
Meet the people you've elected.
You're right, and it was 8 days before the election, which tells me that was a political event. That Boone School, unfortunately, was holding a political event on their grounds, and the West Rogers Park Community Organization, that coincidentally got a $100,000 grant from Ira Silverstein, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, really. Were the main people behind the meeting, and. Why not allow their opponents? I mean, some of those people were up for election 8 days later. So on the grounds of a Chicago public school. Now, by the way, the West Rogers Park Community Organization, to the best of my knowledge, is not a 501c3, but kind of pretends to be. But many of the other organizations involved that night were 501c3s. Should not have been holding a political event 8 days before the election, but that's all I wanted to say along that.
No, that's okay.
But
and that's why I'm having you on, and we're together, because I want to hear
That was a great panel. I mean, most of those people.
It was a great panel.
I voted for most of those people, not all of them.
I have because you couldn't vote for Larry and Bridget at the same time because they're in different districts.
Well, I promise you I didn't vote for Lou Lang.
Well, I will tell you, though, speaking of Lou Lang, the most eloquent of the speakers during
Yeah.
this meeting was Lou Lang. He was smooth
Yeah.
as anything. Bernie Stone spoke well. Ira Silverstein spoke well. Jan Schakowsky was very eloquent. But there was a certain smoothness to Lou Lang when he spoke that was very impressive in this meeting for people who were talking. Bridget seems
Well, by the
to
way,
be
as a former
fine
member of
speaker, too.
as a former member of the Agricultural Committee, he's really learned to spread the. So
Very good, very good. So I want
Oh,
to
so
talk about.
what was your Bridget? I want to.
I want to say she is a wonderful young lady who kind of got appointed into the position, and she is really so sincere about wanting to do well for her district.
Well,
in
she's
the
also got
county.
an education that qualifies, an education and a background that fits like a glove for what she's doing.
Let me tell you, if we could use a Yiddish word to talk about Bridget, I would call her a mensch, because after our meeting, I got a note in the mail, snail mail, from her, thanking me for being so kind in meeting her.
She's a very, I would say something. She's a very nice person, and I know people that within the political community think highly of her as a person and thought that way before she was even gone to appointed office. And she has been elected since.
Yeah, since, but originally she went in and appointed. So one of the people that's there that I met through you once again and became friendly with, was Larry Suffredin.
Yeah.
I met him through you. You know him very, very well. And it was interesting. After the show, I had been talking to some people, and some people said to me, "Oh, Larry Suffredin, he was the final vote." What final vote? That supported Todd Stroger and his tax rise.
That's correct.
And so I'm interested in your opinion about someone who we both admire as Larry Suffredin and how he made that decision to vote for that tax rise that so many people were against when our taxes were raised to be the highest taxes of any county in the country.
Oh, that's an easy one, actually. Well, first of all, it was total gridlock because they wouldn't have had enough money for the budget without that, but he wasn't willing to just give that away. The deal was that in order to do that, he wanted a board appointed over Cook County Hospital to oversee the operations because it has been run inefficiently, both monetarily, both medically, lots of problems. So he insisted on having, I forget the official name, but an oversight board over the hospital. And basically, he won the point, and 9 people, and they went through a lot of names, and people, dropped out. But they have really like a pretty good panel of people who've really been working to help the hospital become more a model of efficiency. And the evidence that it was a good thing to start that board, and that was the price, was the income tax increase, is that all 4 county board candidates wanted to see that panel continue into the future overseeing the hospital.
Very interesting.
So, you know what? He did have an opponent in the last election, but he beat him handily.
Once again, I have some expertise questions for you. And someone else I met that night for the first time, though he had some of his people there at my place when we had the board forum with Carol Marine, who was just wonderful on my show and as a moderator.
Yeah.
That was Stephen Bernstein, who introduced himself as former alderman of Evanston.
Right, he was an alderman of one of the 9 aldermen in Evanston.
And he introduced him as such, and I said, are you introducing yourself as judge or judge-elect? He says, no, I'm introducing myself as former alderman. And out of the blue, I think out of the blue at least, from what I know as far as his political career going into judicial work, he won as judge. How do you think that happened? Because I believe, did he meet Michael Bender?
He beat a number of people.
Michael Bender was on
Michael Bender ran against him. Mary True, who is also a very highly qualified candidate.
Michael Bender is a Rabbi Doug friend, somebody I've known for many years.
Michael Bender's a great guy and a terrific judge.
And his father is a great judge. And then Yehuda Lebovitz, who also is an old acquaintance friend of mine since I was a kid. I was actually friends with his sister growing up, Aleha Shalom, of blessed memory. He also lost. And I'm wondering, tell me, how did Steve, in your political opinion, how did Steve Bernstein win this election? How did other people who had more experience as judges and someone who was an incumbent who everybody, at least in our community, knows so well, like a Michael Bender, and someone like a Yehuda Lebovitz, who is very popular in the community, how did these 2 people lose?
Most people don't realize what the political structure is in this area. The political boss in the 9th Congressional District, the cigar-smoking, old-time, like evil Snidely Whiplash type person, is Jan Schakowsky. Okay, who's a perfectly charming, wonderful person, and I love talking to her. And she's got a great smile, and I've had a number of pleasant conversations and interviews with her over the years. But she's the political boss. Now, in terms of the numbers of votes, Steve Bernstein had the support of the Evanston alderman, he had the support of Jeff Schoenberg, who is the
state senator.
He's state senator, and he's also the commissar of the Politburo of the People's Socialist Republic of Evanston. And
he is a resident of Evanston now.
He is.
Grew up in Niles, and now
he's
lives
the
in
head of the
Evanston.
Democratic Party of Evanston. That's just my joke name. Well, actually, yeah, they are pretty socialist over there. But and by the way, Jeff is a genius financially.
Great guy.
And he's a brilliant state
Childhood friend of mine.
He's a brilliant state senator. He absolutely is. He went to both Akiba and Hillel Torah in the academy the same years my brother was. They were classmates.
We graduated together.
Okay. No, Jeff is very talented, but basically Evanston is about 35% of the vote. Okay, that's number one. Now, Jan Schakowsky also affects the vote in 49 because unfortunately, the reality is that basically the political organization in the 49th Ward, East Rogers Park, which extends a little bit into West Rogers Park, is dependent in large part upon Jan Schakowsky's approval. Even Iris Silverstein, who basically I would like to think really means well, he has to dance a dance between Mayor Daley and Jan Schakowsky. Because if she really wants to put out an all-out effort, she's going to have a big say in what goes on around here. There's a lot of people that back her. Not to mention Lou Lang has to be beholding in Skokie and Niles to Jan Schakowsky, and so do the people in, as a matter of fact, Mike Kreloff in Northfield Township, I think, is where he's the Democratic Committeeman, a former East Rogers Park Jewish attorney, former assistant state's attorney. He also has to bend over backwards and kiss Schakowsky's butt. She controls money, votes, power, you name it. It's like I know people that hate Jan Schakowsky's politics, but she makes sure that their organization has six figures, and all of a sudden they love her politics and they tell everybody to vote for her. So Steve Bernstein actually was considered not qualified by 7 of the 11 bar associations, as he was a transactional lawyer. And never showed up in court. The joke is that it's a good thing his wife's a judge because she can point out where the courthouse is. And Steve's a very nice guy, I want you to know, a very nice guy, and a nice, warm person.
Very friendly.
Okay, but that doesn't mean he's qualified to be judge. But he had the political organization behind him.
So that's it. It's interesting that so many Jewish candidates won in this primary, in this election, and not always the ones that you expected, because there were a number of Jewish people running. And within our community, in the Jewish community of the West Rogers Park, Skokie, and surrounding areas, it's interesting to see how that played out.
Well, 2 judges won total. One is Bernstein, who unfortunately was the least qualified judge in that race. There was also a guy, Jeffrey Doug Greenspan, who's got much better qualifications than he does, who's from Niles, who was running. And that's not to mention William Luby and Mary True I mentioned, and I'm leaving out somebody, I apologize. But you know what? Yehuda Leibowitz lost. He lost to Gary Cole. So did Abby Fishman-Roman at Coache. I went to town hacking apart in the paper because she had an ethical problem working for Lisa Madigan's office. Jim Epstein won. He's a Jewish judge that won. He is only the 3rd judge in the last 12 years to win countywide. And it took a divided race of 4 people running against him, splitting up the vote against him. Because he only won with like about 25% of the vote. It's not exactly right, but something like that.
So before we're done, I don't want to forget.
Well, this is how much time we're at.
Okay, all right. Well, but the next one is a big one. Of course, someone you've had on your show twice. I had him on my show once, and he won the election, and just everything fell apart. Our esteemed Lieutenant Governor candidate, Scott Lee Cohen, who just the media tore him apart. What do you account for this happening after the election and not before the election or even in the middle of the election? I mean, it really was. He won. He came along and gave his acceptance speech. He made the papers as the winner, and then all of a sudden, a couple of days later, the floor fell out. What do you attribute to this? And is that going to happen to anyone who runs for public office?
Well, it depends. If you mean well, and you mean well for the people of the state of Illinois, it could. Okay, but only if you're well-intentioned. I will explain. Scott Cohn,
Please.
the information was available about Scott Cohn early. People didn't really want to check it out. Some of the stuff I'm not going to excuse some of the things Scott Cohn did. I was a little bit disturbed. You know what, the incident that happened with that woman, I'm not going to worry about the exact details. That was also 5 years ago. The child support thing not paying, that wasn't good at all. No. I don't know all the details, but really there's no excuse for that when you're spending $2 million on a campaign. But the fact of the matter is, you know what? Some people reform. Some people mean to do well. Scott Cohn, you look at everything he did in that campaign, the job fairs, trying to help people. You know what? After the second time he was on the show, he says, you know what? Look, I know I can't give you any money, but I'd like to make out a check to the charity of your choice. And I shouldn't be telling the story on the air, but you know what? I am, because I want people to know what kind of good guy, he's got a good heart. He really does. So I figured he's going to give me $25, okay? And I basically told him it's like my show, okay, my synagogue. He gave me a check for $500 for him. I almost fell over. The rabbi fell over. Not even his best members give him $5. You know, you're a rabbi.
I know.
People don't kick in. You know you need 4 other jobs if you're a rabbi. So, but you know what? He really meant well. Scott Cohn, okay, Mike Madigan had this information. He knew about it. Mike Madigan basically is the only one that called him afterwards.
Well, he's the one who probably convinced him to resign, I presume.
He is the one who convinced him to resign. But by the same token, he was telling him, well, basically he was telling him at the same token, you know, like this is not a big deal and blah, blah, blah. But he was also kind to him and all the rest of it, but he also was showing him the upside and the downside. He played him. Not to mention the fact that what Scott Cohn's kids were being harassed by the press like there was no tomorrow. And he couldn't take it. I'm sorry Scott Cohn resigned. He shouldn't have resigned. He's never going to get back into politics in any kind of position.
Do you think if he didn't resign that Governor Quinn would have a chance?
It's
after all the bad press?
The answer is it's possible. First of all, Quinn isn't exactly, you know what, you look at all the scum in Springfield, okay, and I use the word scum correctly. Not to mention this guy Bill Brady, who won on the Republican side. Wait till the city of Chicago gets a load of his politics. You know, there isn't a.
Won't you come home?
Well,
Bill Brady.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, he's got a refreshing viewpoint. It's going to be different. I mean, he's going to tell you that he wants creationism in the schools. This guy's an arch-conservative. Mm-hmm. So he's not so easily electable either, and he won with 20% of the vote. The fact is that whoever runs for lieutenant governor is going to be pretty scummy in the first place. I really think that Mike Madigan set up the whole scenario for him to resign. I think he's the one that made sure the press knew every single last gory detail and colored it. And I think he basically knifed Scott. He took him in by one hand and put his head on his shoulder while he took his knife and stabbed Scott Cohn right in the back.
Okay, another big political question.
Yeah.
Someone who I've also had on my show before. Do you think that Rob Blagojevich is going to go to jail for a long time, or do you think that he is going to be acquitted?
Well, first of all, I can't talk about the charges. You know what? That's really a legal question that or
I'm
judicial
more asking
question.
you your an opinion on knowing politics as you do.
Yeah,
so
but I
well.
don't know the legal system. It's very possible that what they charged him. See, does he deserve to go to jail? Yeah. It's possible though that the law that they're using to convict him on could actually fail in court, or that they can't completely prove their case. They've already changed the charges. I don't know. The answer to that is I really don't. He belongs in jail. He absolutely belongs in jail. The guy's a crook beyond belief. But will he be in jail? It's a legal question I can't answer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge.
Well, Avi, it's just been a pleasure. One last question. The November final elections, what is the race to watch?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, you know what? The Mark Kirk versus Alexei Giannoulias race.
That's it.
Okay, is the most interesting race. I'd like to say that Joel Pollack might have a chance against Jan Schakowsky. I hope he does. I'll find that particularly interesting. And not to mention the 10th Congressional District congressional race also between Dan Seals, who's actually been pretty good for Israel, and the Republican candidate isn't bad either. I can't think of his name right now. I just wish it was Ari Friedman.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, Avi, I want to thank you so much for having me in your studio, for sharing the Northtown News Magazine with Taped with Rabbi Doug, and I want to thank all of you for being with us Remember, you can check out our website, www.tvrabbi.com, or if you want to send me an email or Avi an email, I'll be happy to forward it to him. That's info@tvrabbi.com. I want to thank you, Avi Myers. I want to thank all of you. Hope to see you next time right here on Taped with Rabbi Doug. And watch the Northtown News Magazine every single week as well. Shalom, everyone.
Thank you, and thank you, Sonny.
Thanks, Sonny.